Today, on the Barricade Guard Show, I'm going to discuss some things to consider when planning for your family's safety and security during emergency situations. When the power goes out for a few hours, most people aren't too alarmed. If it's out for a day or two, you might be uncomfortable and have to adjust some short-term plans, but again, it's probably more of an inconvenience than a reason for full-blown panic. But what if the power is out for more than 3 days, and nobody knows when it's coming back on? Now the concern increases. Most people only have enough food on hand to last about 3 days without a trip to the grocery store. And when people are hungry, desperate, and concerned for their survival, and maybe even the survival of their families, many will resort to stealing and violence to try to get what they need. If you've started to implement some of my food and water suggestions from my last 2 videos, which I'll link to below, then hopefully you aren't one of those people. But the vast majority of those around you haven't taken serious steps to prepare for prolonged grid down events. And you need to be prepared to keep your family safe and your supplies secure in that kind of emergency situation. Keep things quiet. And to do this, the first thing I'll recommend is to be cautious about who you discuss your preps with. I'm not saying not to discuss anything about prepping with anyone, because building a community of like-minded people around you will be more and more important the longer that any grid down event continues. But it's probably not the best idea to pass out a printed inventory of all your supplies to every stranger on your block. Even with your family and friends, you want to have some discretion. You care about them and want to help them be prepared, but if everyone you know shows up on your doorstep because they know you're the prepper guy, you probably don't have enough food and water to take care of a small village. Feel free to discuss concepts, principles, and ideas, but just don't disclose every supply that you have. The more the relationship grows and the more confidence you have in their character, intentions, and mutual interest in preparedness, the more you can slowly begin to share more information. This requires some discernment, so use good judgment and err on the side of caution. I realize that I'm going a bit against my own advice with this series of videos, but that's a choice I've made to try to provide a resource that I'm hoping will be helpful to others. And don't worry, I'm not sharing every last detail here either. Another aspect of keeping things quiet is minimizing the light, sounds, and smells coming from your home. Maybe you have a gas or propane generator and can power lights and small appliances. For short power outages lasting a day or two, your planning might inspire your neighbors to consider something similar for the future. But for longer outages lasting more than 3 days, well-lit homes and the sound of a generator will draw the attention of people scouting the area for supplies. Or maybe you're cooking some seasoned meat on your grill and the smell is drifting down your street to people who haven't eaten in days. At some point, their hunger might get the best of them and a confrontation could occur. This is not the kind of attention you want, especially at a time when emergency services might be unavailable. Instead, use indoor lighting minimally, only as needed, or in rooms with no windows. And consider battery-powered portable power stations that operate silently or with minimal fan noise. Not only will the quiet operation be more discreet, but the lack of fumes means you can keep and run the portable power stations indoors, which is also an important aspect of operational security. You want to keep yourself, your family, and your supplies indoors as much as possible with the doors locked and the curtains closed. I know this sounds unpleasant, but it might help keep you and your loved ones safe. Deterrence and hardening. Despite your best efforts, if a grid down event drags on long enough, the day might still come when groups start wandering your area looking for supplies. So how do you make your home an unattractive target and fortify your defenses just in case they try to get in anyway? To start with, leave as few things as possible outside of your house, especially things of value or supplies that are important to your survival. Don't give anyone any more reason than they already have to think that you're sitting on a stash of supplies. Next, even if you don't have any pets, set a few large dog bowls and dog toys on your front porch. If there is no power and emergency services aren't responding, intruders might not fear security signs, but they'll still fear being chased down by hungry dogs, and this might cause them to pass you by for a less risky target. Motion-activated solar lights can also be a valuable deterrent. Make sure they are pointed away from your house so that they are lighting up the threat, and place them high enough so that they cannot be easily reached. Next, let's talk about windows. Consider installing blackout curtains to increase privacy, and depending on the size and location of your windows, you might also think about installing anti-break security film to slow down intruders. Another way to slow down intruders is by reinforcing your doorways. Consider securing sliding doors with security bars, installing longer screws in your door hinges and strike plates, and installing next-level security plates from Door Armor. For more details on this topic, check out my simple home security video, which I'll link to below. And while exterior door security is important all the time, planning for emergency situations means thinking about reinforcing at least some of your interior doors as well. Which room or rooms would you designate as safe rooms that your family would retreat to if a door or window was breached? Think about that, and then plan to reinforce those doorways. Emergency drills. I know. We've all sighed with annoyance when we've heard the alarm bells at work or in class, and we've had to stop what we're doing to walk outside for 5 minutes as part of the obligatory fire drill. But there's a reason for these drills. Think about sports teams that run drills over and over again. They want to see what works, what doesn't, and what needs adjustments. Then, once everything is running smoothly, they run the drill some more to commit it to muscle memory. This way, when seconds count and they're running on adrenaline, they can still execute and accomplish what needs to be done. And if this works for businesses, schools, and sports teams, it can work for your family too. Do you have young kids in your house? How do they react when the smoke alarm goes off or there is a loud unexpected noise in the middle of the night? Maybe some mix of fear and panic? If your family has never practiced what to do in these types of situations, then things will be much more difficult and frantic if your first trial run is during a real event. So take the time to think about how you would want to handle things like fires and intruders. Who should go where? What supplies do you want stored in which rooms? Who should be opening or securing doorways? Who is calling for help, and who is engaging the threat? The answers to these questions might depend on the ages and abilities of the people in your household and the layout of your house. So brainstorm some plans and then try them out. Do a test run and see what worked well, where people struggled, and what you want to change. Then run the scenario again and reevaluate. Keep going until everyone in your household has a finalized plan firmly in muscle memory. Establish panic words that you can use to alert everyone when they should stay in place or move to a certain location, and use these words to begin your drills. Even for young kids, if you make them feel like they have an important and valuable role to play, they'll be excited and have fun with it. Self-defense. Okay, so you've taken all of these precautionary steps, but someone still decides to break in anyway. Now you are all that stands between the intruder and your family. What's your plan? For a long time, I didn't have one. Not a real one anyway. The 2-foot baseball bat next to my bed gave me a false sense of security, and I think my subconscious imagined that the adrenaline rush from a break-in situation would allow me to reenact martial arts scenes from The Matrix or The Karate Kid. Of course, even if I was Daniel LaRusso himself, no amount of kata or crane kicks was going to stop rounds being fired by an intruder. I eventually acknowledged this reality and decided to accept my responsibility to be able to provide a reasonable line of defense in this type of situation. I needed to be able to neutralize threats at a distance, rather than risk the dangers of hand-to-hand combat. And since not every threat is life-threatening, I decided to start with pepper spray and pepper gel. This is an inexpensive option that even my wife feels comfortable using. Pepper sprays and gels are sold in a variety of sizes and can be stored or mounted at strategic places throughout your house, so that they are readily available both day and night. And for a suspicious situation that does not seem to be life-threatening, these non-lethal options can be a good place to start. But some situations are life-threatening and require a response that is more forceful than pepper spray. And for these situations, I recommend responsible firearm ownership. For me personally, this was not a decision that I made lightly or without research and precautions taken. And if your initial reaction to that suggestion is hesitancy and concern, I understand where you're coming from. I didn't grow up around firearms, and not too long ago, I would have looked at a properly cleared and secured pistol as though it were a live grenade. I was never anti-gun, but I just wasn't properly educated on their use and value. Thankfully, I now recognize them as a tool, and tools can be used for good in the hands of virtuous men, or for bad in the hands of evil men. As the saying goes, a rock in bad hands killed Abel. A rock in good hands killed Goliath. It's not about the rocks. And while the intentional killing of an innocent person is always wrong, defending your life and the lives of those entrusted to your care can be legitimate, even if that means dealing a lethal blow to an aggressor. This is not something that should be rushed towards or reveled in, but it is something that should be recognized as a right, and in some cases, a duty. Please see the links in the show notes below for links to additional resources on the morality of self-defense. Other things to consider. All of the things I've mentioned in this video are helpful to consider, especially during the first several weeks in an emergency situation. But the longer the event drags on, the more important community becomes. No matter how skilled and well-stocked you are, you can't provide triangulated defense of your entire property by yourself for 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, for an indefinite amount of time. Eventually, you'll need to determine who around you can be trusted and work together with them to keep each other safe. We'll talk more about other important aspects of establishing a community in a future video, but I at least wanted to mention this point since it's directly related to operational security. Whether we're talking about an emergency event or a trip to the grocery store, make sure you stay vigilant. Keep your head on a swivel and be aware of your surroundings. Take notice of people who seem overly intense or on edge. Know where your exits and safe rooms are and how to get to them quickly. And in the unfortunate event that you or someone you love is injured, whether in a violent encounter or just while carrying out daily duties, you need to be prepared to provide some level of first aid and medical care. Join me next time when we talk about medical and hygiene considerations for prolonged grid down events. Do you have other operational security tips? What do you think about my suggestions? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit from it as well. It really does help out me and the channel. Don't forget to follow the Barricade Guard on Facebook, X, and Instagram. The links are in the show notes below. And until next time, fortify your soul, body, and family.